Assalamu alaikum, this is Dr. Mona Idrisi, author of the Muslim Narcissist book and empowerment coach for Muslims. Today's podcast is a Q&A about psychopaths, so anyone who had questions after listening to podcasts 109 and 110 will have them answered here inshallah before we move on to the subject of sociopaths. So usually when I receive a significant number of questions, I like to do a podcast so I can answer important questions properly and we can take a deeper dive into them. So do listen to the end. Some of them are really interesting and you may find lots of the questions and answers really helpful for you and your situation. So before we jump in, I'd like to kindly ask you to like the podcast. If you find it helpful, please share it with others whom you feel could benefit from this information. You can subscribe to the channel for notifications of when I drop podcasts, and you can also sign up to the newsletter on the website for emails notifying you of any news and podcast releases. And if you need one-to-one counselling and coaching, there's a link in the description box that will take you to the website where you can read all the information about the services I offer, and you can submit an application form on the website and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, I'd love to welcome you here. I recommend that you start from the beginning and work your way up so that you don't miss out on important information, because sometimes you'll listen to a podcast and you'll find that there may be some gaps of missing information that have already been addressed in previous podcasts. So for example, you may start at number 83 and then ask what the hell is a qareen? I've already addressed all of that before. I can't repeat information about the qareen and other things in every single podcast. So please do start from the beginning, and if you haven't grabbed a copy yet, read the Muslim Narcissist book, because all the foundational information for these podcasts is in there, and inshallah it will help you to understand everything I say better, and it will help you to understand yourselves and other people, and it will just give you some education and inshallah answers and closure as well. So do have a read whenever you have the time, and whenever you get a minute, I would absolutely love your Amazon reviews. Please don't forget to leave a review of the book when you finish reading it. It means a lot to me. I would really, really appreciate it. Your reviews really help other people and encourage them to read the book and get the answers and, the healing and education that they need, inshallah. Okay? So, without further ado, let's jump into the first question, which is: my malignant husband has promised me everything I wanted if I come back. He even said he would take me on holidays and do couples therapy. Are they genuine when they say this? Look, some are and some are not. Okay, some people have to go through a very humbling experience to lose their wife and their family to understand that they were wrong. Okay, so this humbling experience can cause them to open their eyes to what they're doing, the self-sabotage, the abuse, everything that, is causing them to lose everything that they value in their life. So yes, some people do change from such an experience, and some people, they'll reel you back in so that they can take revenge on you for leaving, okay, especially when they are malignant narcissists and malignant psychopaths. So if they've reached that stage already, then know that you're taking a very high risk by going back, okay? Some psychopaths will agree to couples therapy and they'll agree to everything that you want only because it allows them to get a foot back in the door. So if you don't recognize the Hoover and you take the bait and you allow them back into your life, it just gives them another opportunity to finish the job, okay? Some people will offer you the things that you wanted because they are genuine, but you can't be taking these people back quickly and easily. You have to be certain that they're being held accountable and they're making the right changes and they're showing you the right efforts for them to be better. So if you take them back very quickly, then you're making a huge mistake. Okay, you need to have a period of separation where you can observe from a distance that they're doing the work that's needed for you to feel confident enough and safe to go back. And some people know. Some people get irritated and angry when you don't take the bait. They want you to take the holidays and take the promise of couples therapy and everything so that they can come back in and finish the job, because they are so mad at you at that point. And you can expect all sorts of things, especially when they did not expect you to leave. Okay, this is why I tell you guys so many times, if you have left a malignant psychopath in any situation, never go back. Never go back, because you are risking your life in some cases by going back. Okay? These people get the worst intrusive thoughts. Okay, their qareen really does overpower them. So when you go back, you're really tempting fate. And even if they don't do anything physically to you, you may get pregnant. Okay, you may have a child with this person that will tie you to them for the rest of your life. That's another issue for many people. You'll never be able to get rid of this nightmare from your life because now you have a child because you went back. When you notice someone is a malignant psychopath or a malignant narcissist, just get the hell out of there. Don't go back. Don't give another chance. Unless you want to, because you've seen genuine change. This is very rare, but it can happen. It's not impossible. It does happen sometimes when someone has reached the peak of being humbled. But don't bank on it and don't hold your breath on it, because it's more likely that they're not going to make any changes, okay? They're only reeling you back in to finish what they started. They will do that. I'm telling you, it has happened so many times. There are many women out there who escaped from psychopaths, and then they fall for the hoover, they fall for the bait, they come back, they get killed. That's when they get killed. That's when all the crimes happen. So please take it seriously. It's not a laughing matter. I can't even insert humour into these podcasts from how serious this is. I usually like to insert some humour here and there to lighten a subject load, but I can't from how serious this is. So, do listen to the end of the Q&A, because there are some really great questions here. And I want to make a note as well about the holiday thing. Okay, when malignant psychopaths promise you a holiday, or they tempt you with a holiday and they say, oh, do you remember that trip you wanted to go on, to Japan or Switzerland or wherever? Be very careful, because there is usually a very sinister agenda behind that. Many psychopaths will wait until you leave the country, you go somewhere else, so that they can commit their crime. Okay, and they usually do this on holidays. So they'll take you somewhere isolated, somewhere in nature. They'll take you out to the ocean. They'll go on forest camping trips with you. They'll take you to the cliffs. And then that's where they either abandon you, especially if it's a snowy mountain. Do you know how many people have done that? They go on these hiking trips in the snow, and then they leave their spouse up there to freeze to death. And they'll wait a few days before calling the emergency services. They'll say, oh, my wife disappeared today. I can't find her. I've lost her. But she's already been gone for a few days, and he knows for sure that she's already frozen to death. That happens a lot. There are some people who take you out on boating trips, and especially if they own a boat, and they'll just push you in the middle of the ocean, and they'll leave you there. Or they'll push you off a cliff and say it was an accident. They like to go to places where there aren't many people who could witness the crime. There was a documentary on Channel 4 back in 2024 called The Push, and it was about this Muslim guy who pushed his wife Fawzia off a cliff and framed it as an accident. You've got to be really careful about things like this. You can't go with an abuser to somewhere where there aren't many people, or a place you're not familiar with. It's a really bad idea, okay? Because that hate they have for you will come out in an accident, okay? And lots of people actually get a pre-warning about this. They might joke about pushing you off a cliff or leaving you in the ocean, leaving you behind. They may joke about, doing certain things, but they're actually planning to do it because they're thinking about it. And whenever you go with a malignant narcissist or a psychopath to a place where a crime could easily be committed, like a cliff, or, you're being in the middle of the ocean, just you and them, their intrusive thoughts get wild, really wild. Like, imagine yourself, walking up a mountain and you're looking over the edge. You, as a good person, as someone who's not a psychopath, get intrusive thoughts about slipping, right? about what would happen if you were to fall or if you were to be pushed off. You get those intrusive thoughts. The qareen starts playing with your head and you start to get really nervous about being up there. Or you get nervous about being in the ocean because the intrusive thoughts start to, come into play. So imagine you as a good person getting those thoughts, and then imagine a psychopath getting their thoughts. It's 100 times worse because their qareen is pushing them to do something really terrible. And then they act on impulse. All of a sudden, they just push you. All of a sudden, they throw you out the boat. All of a sudden, they just abandon you. You've gone to the bathroom, or they could even knock you out. They can even get something and knock you out so you're unconscious and then leave you in the snow, leave you in the water to drown. I know this sounds so horrible and it's so sinister, but I have to spell it out to you guys for you to understand how crazy these people are. It's not a joke when they say it. It's because they're thinking about it. Like, I'm going to kill you one day. Or, just watch what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to leave you in that ocean one day. I'm going to push you off a cliff one day. I'm going to leave you up the mountain one day. And they'll say it as a joke, but it's a pre-warning. And also, as you know from all these horror films, there are malignant psychopaths who will take you to forests, kill you there, and then bury you there because no one's there to see it. So many people get buried in these places because it's easy for psychopaths to access them, and they do this in the dark during camping trips. People take a huge risk when they are with abusers, honestly. And I can understand that, you have that hope that they will change and that they're getting better and, we're going on a family holiday, everyone's happy. But think of all the news reports of people who got killed on holiday by the husband, by the wife. It just makes your blood go cold. There was a story recently of a man who drowned his wife in the swimming pool that they had with their private villa, and then he framed it as an accident. And he had cheated on her, she had taken him back, and then they went on this luxury holiday and she was found dead in the pool. So you can never be too careful. And this is one type of psychopath. The other type of psychopath is the one that just, will murder someone directly. He'll just get a knife and stab them 100 times. He will just get a gun and shoot the family members. He will, do something and then hold his hands up when the police come, like, yep, I killed my family. Yep, I killed my wife. Yep, I killed my husband. I did it. There's that type of psychopath as well who's got nothing to lose. They don't care about going to jail because as far as they're concerned, their mission is complete. But the type of psychopath who does it on holiday and they frame it as an accident, they're still not done with life yet. They still have things to do and victims to pursue. And I just remembered another story that happened this year where a woman called Sia had conspired with her boyfriend Chetan to kill her fiancé Ketan because she didn't want to marry him. It was an arranged marriage and they arranged for him to be pushed off a cliff. So he fell to his death, unfortunately, and it was reported by them as an accidental slip while he was taking photos. Sometimes when a psychopath wants to be with someone else and you're the obstacle, they will get rid of you and they'll get rid of the kids. So, for example, they want to move on to a new victim and the victim says, I don't want someone who has children. They say, fine, no problem, I'll get rid of the kids. And they'll kill their kids. I don't want to be a second wife, no problem, I'll get rid of the first one. If that's what it's going to take to prove loyalty. So psychopaths who reach this stage where they are transitioning to a new victim, they often believe that they are done with their mission. Okay, they've destroyed their previous victim. Now they have nothing to lose, so they are willing to give up their spouse, their families for this new pursual, right? For this new project that they have to work on and destroy. So whenever the new victim makes a demand like that, they agree because the mission has been complete. When the mission is not complete, they do not agree to such a request. And this is why some malignant psychopaths will entertain new victims, but they will never divorce their previous one. Okay, they will hold on to that marriage until the day of judgment. They will not issue a talaq. They will not let you escape because they still need you there for whatever reason. That's why a lot of people are stuck with malignant psychopaths. This is actually an answer to someone else's question. They asked me, why would a malignant psychopath not divorce you if they have found new supply? It's because they still need you there. They will only divorce you when they believe that you are 100% destroyed, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in every way. But if they still need you for something, I'm telling you, you will not get that talaq until the Day of Judgment. So it's up to you to escape. And I'll say it again, be careful when it comes to going on holiday with these people. The Indian couple who planned the death of the woman's fiancé, they went on a hike to celebrate her 20th birthday. Okay, she was only 20 when she did that. So, don't think that you're safe just because they're celebrating you, or, they're going out for your birthday, or they're, flying you out for the anniversary. Don't do it. Don't do it with anyone who's malignant. And if you really do need to travel, take other people with you and be in public places at all times. Okay? I advise against it completely, but if you absolutely have to, then avoid isolated places, avoid nature treks and going into the sea and mountains and all that kind of stuff. Now the next question is, my wife wakes me up strangling me and is always punching me, kicking me, spitting on me and screaming, and then acts like nothing happened when we leave the house. Is she malignant psychopath or is she possessed? She has been like this since we got married a year ago. First of all, what the hell are you still doing there? And second, this isn't someone who has sudden possession. Okay, people who are like this consistently over a long period of time are people who have developed this disorder. So unfortunately, you just saw all her trauma come out after the marriage, all her triggers, all her, psychopathic traits came out when you married her, because you are the punching bag, you are the victim, you are the person who she's going to take her wrath and her trauma and her misery out on. Okay? If she wasn't like that when you guys got engaged, if you didn't see any of this behaviour beforehand, then she is not suddenly possessed. She may have a jinn problem. There may very well be a jinn attached to her. However, these kinds of people develop NPD over time. And then the jinn becomes a problem that's integrated with the disorder. Okay? So people who, I've said this many times, people who suddenly get possessed by a jinn tend to be good people, and it just comes out of the blues. They start acting out of character. But when someone is already narcissistic or psychopathic and then they get a spiritual problem along the way, it just adds to it. It doesn't change them completely. It just fuels their narcissism and their psychopathic behaviour. So they're more dramatic. When they're angry, they get really angry. And they also rage in really horrible ways, and they do crazy things. So that would be the answer to that. The next question is, what's the safest way to leave a malignant psychopathic husband? He said, I will burn in hell if I left the house without his permission. So in this case, because you are fearing for your life and your safety is in jeopardy, you can leave the house without his permission. And you are permitted in Islam to seek safety elsewhere. So you could go back to your parents. You could go to a friend's house. You could go to a woman's shelter. Wherever it is you need to go, it's absolutely fine, because it's a completely different circumstance here. You don't need his permission to leave. When you are in such a dangerous situation, of course, the abuser's never going to let you leave. So it makes no sense to have to ask his permission in such a situation. So you can leave. Save yourself, protect yourself, and go to people who can keep you safe. And I also recommend that you apply for a divorce. If you're going to go for a khula or a faskh, do it when you're not in the house. So do it when you are in your safe place. Do it when you're back at your parents. Do it when you've travelled back home to your country. Don't do it when you are in the presence of the psychopath, because there have been lots of reports where the psychopath has gone on a full rampage after being put on the spot and being told that, they're going to get divorced, especially after you've escaped. So they will see that you've deceived them, tricked them, and they'll take punishment into their own hands. Okay, they'll take revenge on you for that if they are to that level. And I have seen, horrific things happen. So please don't do it when you are still in the house with them. Do not ask for a divorce. Do not tell them your plans. Do not apply for a khula or a faskh while you are still living with them. Make sure you have escaped and then do all of that. And just as a side note, if you plan on leaving the house without asking for their permission, you haven't told them your plans, you haven't told them that you're going to apply for a khula, you haven't told them that you've got the Shariah Council on board already, if you're planning to do all of that, you cannot go back to this person. Okay, because if you do that, then they'll probably lock you in the house after that. They'll never trust you to leave the house again. They'll never trust you when it comes to the people you speak to. They will be tracking everything. They want to know all your plans. They will follow you, stalk you. The abuse will get worse because in their minds, they're thinking, well, she managed to escape. I was stupid enough to, give her enough space to escape. I need to tighten up. I need to be more strict. I need to do this and I need to do that. So you think that when you go back, they're going to appreciate it? No, honey. They're not going to appreciate it at all. You've just taught them a very valuable lesson, and you've taught them that their prison isn't secure enough. The prison they've put you in needs more work, right? The escape routes need to be blocked. That's what's going to happen. This is what happens to 99% of women who try to escape and then go back. I can't say this enough. So if you're going to do it knowing full well that you cannot go back. If you're not ready for that kind of move, then don't do it. Just wait until it's the right time for you. All right? Now the next question is, my mother is a malignant psychopath and she is always screaming and beating us girls, but is good to our two brothers. We hate her. She tells us all the time we are ugly and should accept the ugly men who come to propose. She's always humiliating us, shaming us, and puts us down. Is it haram to cut ties with her once we manage to escape from this house? So, you need to listen to podcasts 11, 93, and 94 to understand what your rights are in this kind of situation. Because I don't advise people to just cut off their parents like that. In this kind of situation, I would advise for you to distance yourself from her. So whenever you are able to move out or you get married, inshallah, to good men, or you have to move away to, work in a different city or for whatever reason, then maintain ties with her, but from a distance. And do it at a frequency that is comfortable for you and that also maintains respect. So if you, for example, if you're speaking to her every day and she's abusive to you every day on the phone, make it every other day. If it's the same, every 2 days, every 3 days, every 4 days, until you get to a frequency of contact that's comfortable and there is less abuse. Some people find that they can only contact their parents once every month because of how much, abuse they get over the phone. So they don't visit very often and they don't call very often, but they find that if they call once a month, then the parents are less likely to be abusive on the phone. So you need to reach a point where you can have a civil conversation without it turning toxic. That is how you figure out how much distance you need with your parents. So don't cut them off completely unless they continue with abuse. There are threats of murder, there are threats of physical harm and all these kinds of things. Then get a mediator involved, get an imam involved if you can. And if none of that works, then yes, you have the right to stay away from your parents if they are now a danger to your physical health and safety, well-being and your iman. Okay, you have the right to protect yourself in this situation, but don't just jump into the decision of cutting your parents off. Okay, you figure out what is considered to be a healthy distance. It could be once a month, it could be once every 2 months. Some people don't speak to their parents until, 6 months down the line, because it's the only time they can actually have a conversation or they can visit them without being abused. Some people it's once a week, some people it's every other day. That's up to you to figure out. Okay, some parents are not that bad, so the distance doesn't need to be too long. And, for some, it has to be a lot longer. So I can't tell you what that distance needs to be. You need to figure that out, okay? And in regards to mothers telling their daughters that, they're so ugly and they should accept ugly men and they should accept this and they should accept that, inshallah, I will record a podcast about forced marriages, because this kind of pressure and this emotional manipulation and abuse falls under the umbrella of forced marriages. So when daughters are manipulated in this kind of way, it can erode their self-worth and self-esteem to the point where they will accept someone very unattractive, someone very old, someone psychopathic, narcissistic, someone with so many red flags, because they believe that's all they deserve. So inshallah, I will address this as a separate topic later. And of course, this happens to men as well. So I'm not excluding men from this. Many of them are pressured into marrying women they don't want to marry. And they also have their self-esteem and self-worth eroded by their parents. So inshallah, we will address that at some point, because there are many different ways in which psychopathic and narcissistic parents brainwash their children into accepting marriages they don't want. Okay, so it's not just a direct approach of, you have to marry this person. No, it can be done in different ways, but many people do not know or even recognize that they are victims of forced marriage. And as you know, forced marriage in Islam is haram, which makes these marriages invalid. So we need to speak about, standing up to parents more when it comes to them pressurizing you into marriages you don't want. You have the right to do that. So inshallah, we'll leave that for another time. I just wanted to mention it because it was a part of the sister's question. The next question is, can a codependent have the toxic traits of psychopaths? And the answer is yes. If you are a toxic codependent, you can adopt the traits of psychopaths if the psychopath has trauma bonded you. So you will find yourself being excessively jealous. You might be stalking them. You might be tracking them. You might do all the things that they normally do. But it doesn't make you a psychopath. You're just mirroring their behaviour because they have pushed you to that point in the trauma bond where you're now acting crazy. And they would have gaslit you to the point where you're now acting as toxic as them because you don't trust them, or you fear abandonment, you fear them cheating on you, you fear them doing all sorts of things. So yes, it's possible for a toxic codependent to be this way because they seek the approval of the psychopath, which means they will mirror their behaviour at times. Empathic codependents won't. They tend to hate their abusers or feel sorry for them more than wanting to seek their approval at all times. And also, when a toxic codependent is scorned by a psychopath or a malignant narcissist, they can be as toxic when it comes to the crimes they commit, right? They can blow up a car, they can slash tires, they can, destroy your reputation, they can destroy your career, everything. A toxic codependent can be that way when they're hurt, when they're cheated on, when they've been abandoned. They can be as toxic as a malignant narcissist or a malignant psychopath, and these are the people who tend to murder their abusers. Okay, you will often find that it's the toxic codependent who spent years of their life, pleasing this psychopath and doing everything for them, being a slave for them, and then at the end of the day, when they're abandoned or they're cheated on, or, the person goes and takes a second wife, and so on, they will see the wrath of the toxic codependent. And it's these victims who end up killing their abusers because they have it in them, right? They have that toxicity in them. They are able to do something like that, whereas the empathic codependent is too scared. They can't. They don't have that kind of bravery, and they don't have enough toxicity to be able to carry out horrific crimes like murder, homicide, and whatnot. So that's the difference between them. The next question is, do malignant psychopaths fear death? And the answer is yes and no. So if a malignant psychopath is not religiously inclined, then they don't fear death. Okay, once their mission is complete, they can kill themselves, they commit suicide, they do all sorts of things because the voice in their head, their qareen, tells them that their mission is finished. That's it. You have no more purpose on this earth. So that's the reason why many malignant psychopaths will commit suicide in jail, and they will shoot themselves or even hang themselves after they kill their family members. You find a lot of people like that. After they murder their wife, their husband, their kids, they shoot themselves because the voice in their head has told them it's done. That's it. You can now leave this world. And a lot of malignant psychopaths as well, who are not religiously inclined, will find it better to die than to go to prison for life or to face capital punishment, whether that's being electrocuted in a chair or to be executed. So they would rather just commit suicide than, face all of that. So these are people who tend to not believe in God. Okay, they're atheists, they're people with no religion, and they don't believe in an afterlife, so they have no fear of death. However, the malignant psychopath who does believe in God and they use a religious mask to fool people, deep down they do fear death because there is a part of them in their fitrah that knows it's real. They know it's the truth. They know that hell is real, heaven is real, a day of judgment is coming, and so on. So they will be the ones who tend to either push people to suicide or they frame homicide as an accident. Okay? These are the people who don't want to get caught for murder or homicide or any other crime because they do have a fear deep down that if they die, they're going to hell. Okay? People who avoid death tend to believe in God, even if their actions say otherwise. Even if all their actions state that they have no fear of Allah, they do not acknowledge Allah, because they use Islam so much, even Christianity, any other religion, because they use it so much to abuse and manipulate people, there will be a part of them that believes it's real. Okay, even if they go the other way, where they act like they don't believe at all, trust me when I tell you that anyone who uses religion to manipulate others is someone who fears death. And even if they don't use religion to manipulate and abuse others, if they just have a tiny belief that there is a God, then they will fear death. Okay, evil people know exactly what they're doing, and they always have a fear of what's on the other side. And the irony of it is that they will continue to abuse people even though they have that fear. This is the bit that doesn't make sense about them because it's their qareen who controls them. So their nafs knows the truth, but their qareen is taken over, and that's why their behaviour is very contradictory. And what I mean by that is they can preach to the moon and back about Allah and the Day of Judgment and hell and everything else. But their behaviour speaks volumes that they don't actually believe in what they're saying. They do believe in what they're saying. They know it's the truth. However, because they're controlled by their qareen, they're too weak to fight it, so that their actions match their beliefs, their actions match their words, their actions match their preaching. They can't, because the qareen has taken over. They are not in control of themselves. The qareen has taken over. And it doesn't mean that they will be excused on the Day of Judgment for this. They have allowed the qareen to take control. They have acknowledged that the qareen is the one they obey. Because every day we're tested with the decisions that we make. Do we follow Allah or do we follow Iblis? And those decisions impact our behaviour. And they always choose Iblis. So that's why they will not be excused on the Day of Judgment, because they're not stupid. They're not, insane to be doing this. No, they always choose the wrong thing to do. They know they're hypocrites. They know they're evil people. And they just carry on with it. And they'll still continue preaching. They'll still tell you about Allah. Like I said, Sharia applies to everyone in the home but them. So that's how you know they know what they're doing. Because someone who is insane, the person who will be excused on the Day of Judgment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the same person with everyone they meet. They are like that with their employer, their employees, their family members, their neighbours, everyone. The insane person is the same person with everybody, but the manipulator, The narcissist, the psychopath, is kind to some people, ruthless with some people, merciful with some people, abusive with some people. They know how to deal with everyone to get what they want from people. Okay? That's how you know they're not insane. They know how to be nice when they want to be nice. Why is it that they're so nice to people outside the home, and as soon as they walk into the home, they're abusing their wives, their husbands, their kids? They know exactly what they're doing. That's why they will not be excused on the Day of Judgment. They are not insane, even if they claim to be. Because someone who is truly insane, such as someone who's going through severe psychosis or even severe schizophrenia, this causes a complete disconnect from reality and a loss of cognitive control, cannot differentiate between people. So they cannot pick and choose who they're nice to, unlike the manipulators, people who have full awareness, like the narcissists and psychopaths. Okay, that's the clear difference between the two. And it's very common to see in courts malignant psychopaths claiming that they have psychosis, that they have, severe mental health problems to get out of being punished. Okay, so they don't get jailed for life and they don't face the capital punishment. Now, many of these people believe they have severe mental health problems because of their intrusive thoughts, right? They blame their intrusive thoughts for their actions. They say, well, a voice in my head told me to do this, and it's true. This is, again, the qareen. However, judges need to be looking at how they treat other people in their life to see if they truly have a mental health disorder or not. Because if judges realize that this person is only this way with their family members, then it's very clear that they're the abusers. But if they are like that with everybody, then yes, they will have a case of junoon perhaps. Because it is possible for an insane person to commit crimes unknowingly. They may commit murder and homicide while they're in that state. So, this is how you differentiate between the two. Are they like this with everybody? Or are they like this with some people? If it's just some people, it's not junoon. Okay? The next question is a malignant psychopath capable of love? I have spoken about this before, and yes, everyone is capable of love, but the malignant psychopath will have something or someone specific who they have a soft spot for. So please refer back to my previous podcasts about this, 109 and 110, because I did speak about how, some will have this love for their pets, or a love for someone elderly, or a love for someone who, did something kind to them when they were a child and they kept that with them into adulthood. So, yeah, everyone is capable of love. There is no one on this planet who is not capable of love. Everyone is capable of love. No one is 100% evil. Even if it may seem that way, even the most psychopathic person you could ever know or see in your life will have something or someone he loves or she loves very deeply. Okay, so you may be asking that question because you're wondering why they don't love you. Well, yeah, malignant psychopaths will not love you because you go out of your way for them, you're a slave for them, you do everything that they want. This doesn't earn the love of a malignant psychopath. You're just giving them supply. The malignant psychopath has already made a decision on who they will love. Okay, it's very difficult for them to develop feelings of love for new people because they don't trust anyone. Okay, their trauma doesn't allow them to trust anyone. The people who they love or the animals they love, give them a sense of safety and give them that feeling of being important. Okay, even if you make the malignant psychopath feel important, it will never be the same as what they get from them. Okay, so don't kill yourselves trying to make a psychopath or a narcissist who you live with love you, because it doesn't work. Okay, if they don't love you naturally, it's never going to happen. They will always treat you like they hate you. And on that note, I'll tell you about a DM a sister sent me a while back after she listened to the podcast, and she said, "My husband was very attached to his dog and he became very angry when he died and he took it out on us. I was the one left to take care of the dog while he was working all day. But when he died, he grieved terribly. He is now looking for another dog and I don't want to be the one to take care of it. But when I say that, he takes away my allowance and gives me the silent treatment for days. So it wasn't a question, it was just a comment that she made after she listened to the podcast. And I'll tell you something about narcissists and psychopaths. They love to have pets, but they don't want to look after them. So they will leave you with the responsibility of cleaning after them and taking them for walks and looking after them when they're sick and taking them to the vets. They just want to enjoy the good side of having a pet. Okay, so you will find lots of narcissists who are like this, and there will be the odd psychopath here and there who will do everything for the dog. And that's when people question, like, how can he or she look after their dog so well? Like, they will clean up after them, they will be really empathic with them when they're sick and everything, but not with their family members. So you will find the odd one or two here and there who will do all of that if they have, poured everything, their all, into this dog who they love, because this is the only creature in the world who they love. So yes, they won't want anyone touching the dog. This is mine. This dog is mine. This cat is mine. You can't go anywhere near anything that's mine. Anything that's valuable to me, no one can touch. So you will find that kind of psychopath, and you'll also find the majority of them, having things, but making their minions and their slaves look after them. Right? It's like buying a farm and then just making your whole family do all the hard work of harvesting and looking after the animals and cleaning them out. And then he just boasts to everyone, oh, look at the farm I have and look how well kept my animals are and everything. But he burdens his family with the responsibility. Most narcissists and psychopaths are like that. But the minority will put their all into what they love and who they love. So yes, if a psychopath or a narcissist wants something and you're not willing to look after this thing or this creature for them, then you'll just see them really, really angry. They're like, well, if there's no one there to look after this creature or whatever it is that I want, then I can't have it. And then they punish you for that. So they want what they want. They have to have what they want. So they will punish you by taking away something that you want or need until you cave in. That's how it works. The next question is, does anyone with fearful avoidant attachment style make them a psychopath? The answer is no. So the fearful avoidant attachment style is also known as the disorganized attachment. It's an insecure relationship style where a person deeply craves emotional intimacy and love, but simultaneously fears and rejects it. So this creates an intense internal push-pull dynamic where individuals lean into relationships before pulling away the moment things feel too stable, vulnerable, or real. So it's not just psychopaths who feel this. The man-child feels this, the woman-child feels this, and many codependents feel this. So no, it's not something that's attributed only to the psychopath. The next question is, can someone go from being a psychopath to a man-child? The answer is yes. So people can reverse the cycle instead of, plow through to the very end. There is a U-turn that you can take if you get to a very low level of nafs. So if you find yourself being very narcissistic, you can make changes to elevate your nafs. And, you can go through the stages. So you might go through the man-child stage first, the woman-child stage before you get to, the empath level. So yes, it is possible for a psychopath to turn into a man-child as they are dealing with their trauma, as they're healing, as they are softening a bit, and so on. The next question is, my ex was sexually abused in his childhood by his uncle who died, and he took it out on us. Do they ever get closure? Some do and some don't. Those who don't go on a rampage and they become very dangerous, malignant psychopaths who hate everyone, and they take their wrath out on their family members. They don't like anyone who is anything like the uncle who abused them. And I did explain this in depth in podcasts 109 and 110. So please do go back to those. But yeah, those are the only people who, struggle with coming to terms with what happened to them in childhood, because the person, the abuser, died, and now they're left with these feelings that they don't know what to do with. So those who do get closure are those who seek therapy, they seek professional help, they go to support groups, and it helps them come to an understanding of what happened and make peace with it. They know it's something that happened in the past, they can leave it in the past, and they learn how to move on from that by taking something valuable from that experience. So, for example, they may go into charitable work where they help children who are victims of this kind of abuse, or they create a channel of awareness for parents so that they're more mindful about who they leave their children with. So it really depends on the efforts a psychopath is making to get closure. If they're not making any efforts to get it, then yes, they will suffer all their life, unfortunately. So I hope that answers that question. The next question is, my kid's dad abandoned them after divorce. Does that make him a psychopath? Again, no, because the man-child can do this, right? A man-child who doesn't want responsibilities can abandon their children. A covert narcissist can do this to punish you. Someone who abandons their children is not always a psychopath. Lots of different people can do it. The next question is, the bit about following you around the house was haunting. Is there any more information on this? There's not much more to add to that. They just follow you around the house to intimidate you, to assert control and power, and to always make it known that they are the boss, right? They are your shadow, that you are always being watched. So after a fight, they'll do that. And they'll also do it when they suspect you're up to something. So if they feel like you're talking to your family about them behind their back, they will follow you around to see what you're doing at all times. And they're also known to sneak up on you. They sneak up on you a lot. They spy on you a lot in the home. They just do the weirdest things. So just be wary of that, because they love to intimidate you that way. And it's also just one of their traits. It's just what they do. They will sneak up on you. They will eavesdrop on all your conversations. They will spy to see where you leave things, where you hide things. They want to see who you're texting. They want to see what you do immediately after a fight. Do you go to your phone? Do you go to your laptop? They'll spy to catch your passwords. They will do all sorts of things. So, just be mindful of that. The next question is, how can a malignant psychopath act so calm after a homicide? First of all, they believe they did the right thing. So the guilt and remorse is not there. They believe that they did something that was in their favour or even your favour. Like I said, they saw you so miserable. They saw you being so codependent. They saw you be a slave to them, have no self-worth, no self-esteem. So they believe that by killing you, they did you a favour. So they don't feel remorse. And also their qareen claps for them. So the intrusive thoughts they get are positive. After they commit a crime, they get lots of positive thoughts like, oh, you're such a good person, you did the right thing, the problem has been solved now, mission accomplished, well done. That's what they hear in their minds after they've committed a crime. So the guilt and remorse is not there. For example, let's say a man kills his wife out of jealousy. She wants to leave him and he doesn't want her to marry anyone else. So when he commits homicide, he's not going to feel guilty because his problem has been solved. He doesn't have to feel jealous anymore. He doesn't have to face that torture. So when they go to court, when they're put on trial, they sit there very cold. They don't care because their biggest issue, their biggest problem has been removed. So I don't care now if I go to jail for it. At least I go to jail and she's not out there marrying someone else. I don't care. As long as that's not happening, it's all good. That's why they show no remorse in court, because they truly believe deep down that they did the right thing for them or for the other person. The only time they feel remorse is when they have that belief in God. Okay, you will find them a bit scared of the consequence if a part of them is religious, if a part of them believes. This is very rare, but it happens. The next question is, I get waswas that Iblis was wronged by Allah because Imams back can support many psychopaths. Okay, first of all, education will help you understand what kind of Imams back these psychopaths. And second of all, whenever you get this waswas, these intrusive thoughts, just read your adhkar and keep repeating A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, because this is just your qareen playing with your head. It's playing on everything that you're seeing, and not all imams are like this, but your qareen wants to make you believe that all imams are like this from the ones you've seen. Okay, so don't allow your qareen to win and make you doubt Allah and make you doubt Islam and everything else. Okay, you can go down a very slippery road if you do not tame your qareen from now. The next question is, my man-child husband doesn't hit me, but he always gets close enough to doing it to intimidate me. Is he transitioning to the malignant stage? The answer is potentially yes. So these types of people, they have a desire, a very strong desire to hit you, okay, to beat you up, hit you, punch you, kick you, everything. But they're not brave enough to do it yet because they are aware of the consequences. So they always get close enough to hitting you. They raise their hand, they'll come very close to you, face to face, and you'll always feel like they're about to punch you or kick you or do something horrible, but they stop because they have enough self-awareness to know that it's going to get them into a lot of trouble. However, if you keep enabling this behavior, if you do not put a stop to these threats, then yes, they will transition to the malignant stage where they will easily start to punch you, kick you, physically abuse you, and domestic violence will become the norm in your home. Okay, don't allow it to get to that point. He is now frustrated and he's showing his frustration with this physical type of intimidation that doesn't get to the point of harming you physically, but it will cause a lot of psychological damage. Okay, you will have so much fear every time he gets upset or annoyed, and that's the whole point of it, to instill fear and control. So whenever you see him raise his hand, he knows he's already in control because you're going to fear what will happen next. And it will also cause a lot of damage to your nervous system. So before you get to that stage where you start developing autoimmune diseases because of this fear and this intimidation, please get people involved. Get your parents involved, get an imam involved, mediators, or even his family. You need to do this to prevent him from transitioning into the malignant stage. All right. Now the next question is, my husband takes my phone away whenever we fight, and he also loves horror films. Is this psychopathic behaviour? So look, if he's in the habit of taking your phone away and stopping you from calling anyone during a rage, during a fight, then this is psychopathic behaviour, yes. And it's also dangerous because in a moment of fear, you're going to want to speak to someone, your father, his father, the imam, whoever. You're going to want to call someone in that time, and he doesn't want anyone to come to your rescue. So there is that point. The other point is, he may not want you to record him while you guys are fighting. So if he's having a rage, if he's having a tantrum, and he's caught you filming him before, he will take your phone away every time you fight. That's not necessarily psychopathic behaviour. It could be the behaviour of a man-child, woman-child, covert narc. They all do that as well. So I can't specifically say if this person is a psychopath or not, because it could be this and it could be that. If they take your phone away to take away your safety in a moment of, beastly rage, then yes, it's psychopathic behaviour. But these days there are lots of people who fear being recorded because, these videos will be used against them in court. It will be used to ruin their reputation. You can take it to their family, you can take it to the local imam, and it will embarrass them and shame them. So a lot of people will take away your phone these days when you're having a fight. Okay? And in regards to the horror films, yes, narcissists and psychopaths all love horror films. I've touched upon that before. And they can sleep like a baby straight afterwards. They don't have that fear like normal people do because they're already quite dark inside. They're already plagued by spiritual issues, by jinn, by the waswas. So horror films don't faze them. They see nightmares all the time. So when they watch something on the screen, it's like, oh, this is better than my nightmare. So it's all good. It's all cool. It doesn't scare me. I can still go to sleep. I can have my dinner and my hot chocolate, and while watching the most gruesome scenes, the scariest scenes, they'll munch away like it's nothing. So don't be shocked or surprised when you see this. Believe me, it comes with the package. I'll tell you what will really scare them. If you play my podcast on the TV, wallah, they'll be screaming and yelling at you to switch it off. They'll be covering their ears and screaming, just turn the damn thing off. I don't like it. The podcast about the 7 stages of narcissistic collapse will scare them more than any Steven Spielberg movie there is out there. They will not be sleeping after that one. The next question is, when I recite Surah Al-Baqarah daily, my psychopathic father's behaviour gets so much worse. Was it because of the surah? And should I continue reciting daily at home? Is it safe for me? So yes, when you recite Surah Al-Baqarah in a house full of narcissists and psychopaths, or even if there's just one or two, you will irritate their demons and they will start to play up. Okay, their behavior gets worse, it gets fueled because the shayateen don't like it. So they find themselves very irritated, very angry, very frustrated all the time. They lash out to everyone, but they're not sure why they're so annoyed all the time. They don't know that behind closed doors you're reading Surah Al-Baqarah and they're feeling very irritated because their shayateen are irritated, their qareen is irritated. So continue reciting it. It can help them. It's giving them ruqya, and if it doesn't give them ruqya, then it would just drive them out of the house. That is how a psychopath will eventually leave the house, because staying in the house is unbearable because you keep reading Surah Al-Baqarah. Don't let them see you read it, okay, because they can physically attack you if they do. Continue reading it in secret and they will either get better, inshallah, or they will be driven out of the home and it will give peace to everyone. The next question is, my psychopathic mum threatened to kill me many times if I don't marry the man she wants, but he's horrid. Can I disobey? Yes, you can. Because like I said earlier, this is a forced marriage which is haram. It's best for you to get family members involved, get the local imam involved, and resolve this between yourselves. You should not be going ahead with this marriage, and if she is threatening to kill you, then it's best that you seek help from an organisation, a women's shelter, a friend, a relative who you can stay with, where you can be safe. Because there are lots of malignant psychopathic mothers who will kill their daughters over things like this. So don't take those threats lightly. If she's been threatening this and you say no to this marriage, you disobey her, right? She sees it as disobedience, then you can't stay there. You really can't stay there. You can't take the risk and see what she's going to do. You need to make plans to go elsewhere before you drop the bombshell on her that, you're not going to go ahead with the marriage. May Allah make it easy for you. The next question is, my psychopathic father sexually abused me multiple times as a child and severely beat my brothers. They have now turned to Buddhism and atheism. How can I help them? So first of all, it is so sad that, you've been through something like this. This is horrible. And may Allah compensate you, inshallah. I think the best thing for you to do, subhanAllah, you're asking about how to help them. I'm hoping that you've, received the therapy that you need for your own trauma. The best thing to do is to send them the podcast, because the podcast, inshallah, and the book will help them to understand what they went through. Send them any valuable Islamic content you come across, and ultimately you need to leave them to their own journeys, okay? They have a journey they need to go on, and inshallah this journey will take them back to the truth, and it will also bring them back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay? Especially if they had that in them before. So if they were praying before, if they were practicing before, then inshallah the journey they go on will help them to understand that, it wasn't Islam that caused them to hate the religion and make their father that way. It was a separate problem. So inshallah, once they understand that, come to terms with that, and they make peace with that, then inshallah they'll be brought back. But don't force them, don't pressure them, don't nag them. Just give them the content they need to listen to or read, and then just make dua for them. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings them back and saves them. The next question is, one of our relatives pushed his wife to suicide. Can you provide more information about this, please? So, like I said before in podcast 110, there will be malignant psychopaths who push their spouses and family members to suicide because they don't want to commit the crime. Okay, they don't want to commit murder or homicide. So the alternative is to push their victim to suicide by making life so unbearable, so awful, until, the victim has no other choice but to just end their life, especially if they have no support system, no supportive family, nowhere they can go, no money. The only option they will be faced with is to end their life, unfortunately. This happens a lot. And, sometimes they'll break down a victim's self-worth and self-esteem until, it gets to the point where they say to the victim to just go and do it. Sometimes the victim might say, I hate this life. I just can't live this life anymore. I want to end my life. And they'll say, okay, fine. They'll get the knife. And they'll bring it to the victim and say, well, what are you waiting for? They want them to do it because their mission isn't complete yet. There are other victims they want to pursue, right? And they don't want to get their hands dirty with a crime. They have a reputation to uphold. They have status in society. They are well known, for being very pious people out of the home. So they have an image to maintain. So they don't want to commit the crime, but they will do everything in their power to make you do it. They will press all your buttons, push all your boundaries until you are cornered and you just want to leave this world. You don't want to live this life anymore. Sometimes they'll give you medicine, right? Medicine that will harm you. Sometimes they'll give you drugs. They'll slip drugs in your food and your drink that will make you hallucinate, that will make you hear things. Okay, they will give you all sorts of things that will make you go crazy. So at least, even if you don't get pushed to the point of suicide, they can tell people, look, she's crazy. She's hallucinating. Everything she sees, all this abuse she talks about when she complains about me, it's all hallucination. Can you not see that she's mad? So they slip these drugs into your food so that you start hallucinating, and then people start to think, oh, she's just crazy. Everything she said about her husband, or everything, she said about her father, or everything he said about his wife is not true because she's talking all sorts of garbage. She's spewing all sorts of nonsense because of the drugs. And they don't know that you're drugged. So they start to think, maybe she just, spewed a lot of nonsense about her husband as well, about her abuser. And this is how many women, especially, don't get the support they need from their community. They get dismissed, ignored. They get laughed at and mocked. They get, pointed at as the troublemaker. She's the troublemaker. She's the problem. She's not even right in the head. Have you heard the nonsense she speaks? She's been lying about her husband and so on. Okay? So you've got to be careful with that as well. They are known to put things in your food and in your drink when they want to make you go a little bit loopy. And women especially, the female psychopaths may even do sihr on you to make you go crazy. Okay, like when all else fails, if you are not ending your life like they want you to, they might just go to a magician and get a spell done on you to make you go crazy, so that everything that you've said about them, if you've complained about them to other people, it gets dismissed when people see you acting in a very strange way, and they'll say, haven't I told you she's crazy? Haven't I told you she's possessed and this and that? So malignant female psychopaths will do that. They'll go and do sihr on you to make you go crazy, and that's why you have to really be very on point with your adhkar if you live with these kinds of people. You must read them every day. And if you notice someone start spewing nonsense, right? They start speaking things that are very strange, encourage them to go and get a blood test done. Okay, just go and check for drugs, because it's a huge sign that they could have been drugged. Okay, whether it's you, whether it's someone you know, just, take them to the side and say, let's go for a doctor's appointment and let's get a blood test done, just in case. And also, drink ruqya water. Okay, make ruqya water and drink that daily, just in case someone's done any sihr on you, so that the problem inshallah can go away and you'll have a clear mind to make a good decision about your situation. Okay, the next question is, are honor killings permissible in Islam? The answer is no. Okay, even though it's a cultural practice done in the name of Islam, honor killings are strictly forbidden. Okay, you are committing murder if you engage in this practice. It's murder and homicide. And only psychopaths, engage in this kind of crime. You won't find anyone else doing it apart from malignant psychopaths. So if someone is caught in the family committing zina or anything of the sort, there are rules. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifies certain rules for these things, for these sins. You can't take it into your own hands and murder your own family members because they brought shame to the family or they dishonored you and whatnot. This is murder and homicide. Some women get set up, right? They haven't done anything, but malicious people set women up and framed them for zina, and then they got killed by their family members. Some women get killed just for speaking to a man. Some women get killed for not wearing their hijab in the name of honor. So all of this is haram. And only the malignant psychopath parents and brothers, aunties, uncles will engage in this. Okay, know that this is something that goes completely against Islam. A sister sent me a story in my DM, and I'll share it with you just for you to understand what kind of people would commit a crime like this. It's a very triggering story, but it's something that we need to talk more about because unfortunately this crime of honor killing is done in the name of Islam, and it's actually fueled a lot of Islamophobia. Lots of non-Muslims hate Islam because of all these disgusting, toxic, psychopathic practices that are done in Allah's name. So we need to be speaking more about this and forced marriages and everything that's painted as Islam, because it's causing more harm to the community than staying silent about it. So this sister said, "Thank you for your last 2 podcasts. The way you broke it down was very eye-opening. It exposes Iblis's plot against humanity and how violence has become so normalized and how that's led to good people and good imams losing all credibility in most communities. The intimidation works on most people, unfortunately. Back when I was in Yemen, I had a friend who was married. She was very young, around 18 years old, and she was a victim of an honor killing. It was at a time when smartphones weren't around, just the old flip phones, and it was very uncommon for a woman to carry a phone there. Her narcissistic husband claimed she had one without his knowledge and was communicating with another man and had a relationship with him. Because of that, he returned her to her psychopathic family members, and they locked her up in a room for days and ended up killing her using a lethal injection. So they didn't even fact check anything. They just took his word for it and did that. She was 8 months pregnant with her first baby at the time. And when they saw the baby moving around her stomach after she died, they whipped her body until it stopped. 2 lives gone, all in the name of honor, and twisting Islam to suit their evil ways. Those evil men got away with it until this day and were even praised for it by other toxic people. After that, so many people in the community were having dreams about her in such a beautiful state, glowing with nur. But did that make them question anything? No. They doubled down. It's situations like this that make victims helpless, because they see that if these people can get away with that, then anything is possible. So unfortunately, this is just one story of many. If you go to women's shelters, especially Muslim women's shelters, you will hear so many stories about honor crimes. Okay, they are still very common in our generation, and people need more awareness of these people so that they can inshallah escape them. The women who managed to escape these psychopaths were the ones to tell the story of what happened to them and others. So alhamdulillah for the awareness that's being created, through these charities. And I pray that more and more women wake up to this and escape before it's too late. I received another DM from a sister who shared her story, and it serves as a warning to women who live with malignant psychopaths. Okay, so again, there's a trigger warning with this. She said, I finished half of your last podcast, and normally I can listen to them with ease, but this one hit me hard. I always thought my ex-husband was a malignant narcissist, but I think he is now a malignant psychopath. He took me to a different country to make hijrah, and when I made friends in that country, he took us to another one, and specifically the city he came from. He locked us up and took our passports, so we were literally stuck. I even jumped out of the window one time to run away. I went to a masjid and the imam just brought us right back. I never kept quiet about the abuse. Literally everyone was aware. I don't even know how, but I tried to call the police, and he even installed things on my phone that blocked it from calling the police. He hung cameras around the whole house. I managed to run away literally in the period I had just given birth in. And wallahi, I am happy the kids and I are still alive. There were many times I was so scared he would kill us. He always made ruqya on me and strangled me during it, or pushed pins under my feet. He even slapped me on my ears lots of times until I could no longer hear. It was a horror movie. And now that I'm out of it, it shocks me even more thinking about all the things he did. He also said a lot of times, "Oh, you want to commit suicide, don't you?" The house where he locked us up in had a big rooftop like a terrace. And because we were locked up, I always went there to get fresh air. It happened 3 times that he followed me up there and said, "Do you want to jump? Jump, it's okay, your kids will be fine." He even made up a story that there was a revert who wanted to leave her husband, and he hung her in his garage with a rope, and told the police it was suicide. He even pushed me out of a driving car while I was 42 weeks pregnant. I could write a book about all the crazy things he did. We were literally stuck with him like prisoners. During the time I was married to him, I found your podcasts, and wallahi, they gave me so much hope and strength, and I listened to them daily. And it might sound so weird, but even though we were living in Jahannam, my iman was so strong at that time, and I felt so close to Allah, and your podcast really gave us so much hope and relief. Alhamdulillah, it really makes me so happy to know that the podcasts have saved so many of you. And even on days when I'm just so tired and I can't record, I see a message like this and it gives me the motivation to keep going. So alhamdulillah, this sister and her beautiful children were saved, and I just want you to understand the seriousness of this. Like, it gets worse. It gets much worse. But alhamdulillah, she came out the winner because she came out with her iman intact, her sanity, her physical health. Alhamdulillah, she came out the winner. He's the loser and she's the winner. If you come out with your iman and your well-being, and you still have this drive for life, alhamdulillah, you have proven to yourself what an unbelievably resilient, strong and amazing person you are, mashallah. You are extremely powerful to go through all of this and battle all of these shayateen and come out with iman and a positive outlook on life. Like, you are incredible. Don't ever doubt that. That is where your self-value is. That's where your self-worth lies, in being that powerful to overcome such a malignant human demon and still have hope for a good future. Alhamdulillah, this is protection and rizq and mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you. Never, ever, ever underestimate that. Okay, never. So yeah, that was difficult to read, but alhamdulillah, the story ended well and they are fine now, alhamdulillah. And the story was a great example that brought together all of the things that I've been telling you about psychopaths. So, this is real life stuff that many people don't believe. So alhamdulillah, and thank you so much to everyone who shares their stories with me, because you help me make these podcasts so beneficial and so helpful for other people. So may Allah reward you for that. Now, the next question is, what do I do if my husband threatens to harm the kids if I leave? So in this situation, if mediation doesn't work, so if you get his family and your family together to speak about this, if that doesn't, come to anything, then you need to leave with the kids. You cannot leave the house or ask for a divorce or even apply for a divorce while the kids are still at home. You will need to take them and make sure that you go to safe accommodation with them. Because usually when they threaten these kinds of things, it means, again, they're thinking about it. Okay, it's an idea that they have in their head to keep you there, to keep you stuck. This reminds me of a story from many years ago of a Saudi sheikh who used to come on TV. He used to give fatwas, right? He used to always, be known as this pious mufti. And long story short, his wife managed to complain to the authorities about what he was doing to her with the children. So she had asked for a divorce and he didn't want that. He refused both the khula and the talaq request. And because he's a mufti, everyone was on his side. So she went to the court many times to obtain her rights, but because all his friends work there, they stood by him. So she ended up going to the media about it. And she exposed all of the voice notes that he would send her of him torturing the kids. So she would be at her parents' house and he would send her all these horrible messages of the kids screaming, crying because he's putting spoons into the gas on the gas cooker and he's burning them with it. And he would also pinch them and hit them until they start crying, and then he'd record that for the mother. It was all a ploy to make her come back, to punish her for leaving. So don't take these threats lightly. They do these things. These narcissists and psychopaths are sick people when it comes to the threats they make and, putting them into action. They do. They actually do these things, and women do this as well with their children. This is why so many men are too scared to leave. They're too scared to divorce their wives because they know if they were to leave, they will torture their kids. They'll smack them, kick them, scream at them, not feed them, not wash them. These men know that very well, so they stay. They don't leave. I've spoken to so many people who told me that was the reason. So going back to the sheikh, he got jailed and he was punished for that. And the woman, in the end, she got her divorce, but after so much torture. And you can avoid it by taking the children with you. Sometimes you're just going to have to grab them and leave without telling the narcissist or psychopath, because obviously if you tell them, they're not going to let you take them. They're going to be used as pawns, so why would they let you take them? You're just going to have to take them without their knowledge. And as this sheikh demonstrates, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a mufti, you could be a police officer, you could be someone with very high status, and you can still do that. Behind closed doors. If you're a psychopath or a narcissist, they do these things. So don't think that, because he's a mufti or an imam or this or that, he's not going to harm the kids. Trust me, just take the kids. Do not leave the kids with anyone who is an abuser and anyone who has previously abused the kids. Let the authorities deal with it. The next question is, I found out my husband had daily sex with a doll before marriage. Is this a trait of a psychopath? Yes, it is, because these men are so emotionally unavailable. It's very difficult for them to form emotional connections with women, and that's why they enjoy pornography more. That's why they, prefer AI and robots and all that stuff. I mean, think of Elon Musk when he got himself a robot girlfriend, right? These emotionally available men, they love things like this because it's easier and there's no emotional investment, right? They can objectify this robot as much as they want. They love to objectify women, so the next best thing is the robot they can do anything they want with, or AI, or the pornography and whatnot. So this man is not necessarily a psychopath. It's a trait of psychopathy, but you'll find covert narcissists who also enjoy, having sex with silicone robots and these dolls and all sorts of things. And also man-children love that too. Lots of man-children are addicted to pornography and, they love all the robot stuff as well. So It's more a trait of someone being emotionally unavailable. However, psychopaths who cannot have any romantic relationships, especially when they get to a very high level, they just can't tolerate women, they can't tolerate empaths, they can't tolerate anyone who wants romance from them and love from them. They just turn to dolls. Okay, they turn to objects that they can fulfill their desires with. And there are other types of men who like to use dolls, and they live with dolls and they talk to them like they're real life people. These people have serious mental health problems. Okay, so not all of them are psychopaths. There are people with severe mental health problems and they're absolutely fine, living with these dolls in the house that are so creepy looking with their glass eyes, just staring at them from the corner, and they've all got names and they brush their hair and they wash them, and it's very strange. SubhanAllah, it's very, very weird stuff. But yeah, you have to be severely mentally ill to kind of, be into all that stuff. May Allah help them. The next question is, my malignant psychopath husband won't accept the faskh. So a faskh is the termination of an Islamic marriage by the court. Okay, unlike a talaq or a khula, a faskh is granted by an Islamic judge, a court, or a Shariah Council when a wife seeks to end a harmful marriage and the husband is not cooperating. So in these cases, he's refusing to issue a talaq and he's refusing to accept the khula. So she can go to the Islamic court and she can have her marriage terminated if he doesn't respond to their letters. So this is what this sister did. She goes on to say, he has gone on a serious rampage and has complained to the Sharia Council and is harassing the sheikh who issued the faskh and is making his life a living hell. Due to the pressure on this sheikh, I'm now reeled into mediation I don't want to attend because he's manipulated him into retracting it. My husband has now given me two options. I either return all my dowry, all my gold, all my gifts that he's given me, and he has also sent me an invoice for everything he ever paid for and requested 50% of the wedding and 50% of the honeymoon expenses, or I go to mediation and return to him. What do I do? So for me, this is a no-brainer, okay? And it's just best that you give back the dowry. Whatever was stated as your mahar is what you return. Do not make this agreement outside of the court because it is unlawful for him to request all of these expenses. So if you want to go down the khula route, all he's entitled to is the mahar. And to be honest, the sheikh is wrong to retract the faskh. Okay, once a faskh is issued, you can't retract it. But I can understand how some sheikhs feel very pressured by malignant narcissists and psychopaths to do so. So it's just easier for them to, arrange for mediation and then, go down the khula route, or arrange for you to go back to him. When you know someone is a malignant psychopath, the worst thing you can do is go back to them, especially after they've dealt with you in this way. If they can pressurize a sheikh to retract a faskh, then, you're not going to have an easy time when you go back to them. So I would go down the khula route, give the mahar back and free yourself. Just move on with your life. Don't go back and do everything within the Sharia Council. Okay, don't make any agreements outside of it. Narcissists and psychopaths are known to keep tabs on everything they spend on you. Not all of them, but many of them. They will have these secret spreadsheets where they document everything they've spent. Okay, even the coffees that they've bought for you, the teas, the petty things, the items of clothing, the times they took you out on dates. Every expense will be in that spreadsheet, and you will not see those spreadsheets until you apply for a divorce. And then they ask for everything back. They'll ask you for half the rent. They'll ask you for half the bills. They'll ask you for half the wedding, half the honeymoon, half of everything that you guys shared, because they believe that they are entitled to compensation now. You're the one who deceived them. You're the one who's the problem, so I demand half of my expenses back, half of everything I spent on you. And you'll be shocked. I've seen women who have been shocked to the core when they've seen the itemized, bill the invoice that's been sent to them for every coffee, every tiny petty thing, including toiletries, period pads, everything. And, judges have laughed at this. Judges do not accept this. But it's an attempt for them to get as much as they can back so that they don't have to suffer financial loss. They don't see their victims as worth it, to be providing for you. They say, well, if I didn't get what I needed, my victim is running away, then I want my money back. That's their mentality. Psychopaths especially are known for this. Okay, especially the traumatized psychopath. This kind of person is the most likely to do something like this. I've seen women get invoices for half the holidays. I've seen women get invoices for petrol and all sorts of things, It's actually insanity. But they keep tabs on these things. They will even ask for your allowance back. The allowance they gave you, they'll say, well, I wasn't Islamically obligated to give you the allowance. I was feeding you, clothing you, you had shelter, you had water, and, this monthly allowance that I gave you was an extra. I want it all back. And then, you'll end up with an invoice claiming that you owe them like 500,000, 100 grand, 200 grand, whatever it is. And they demand it back. They say, this is my haqq, I want it all back. If you want a khula, if you want a talaq, pay me this amount of money. I want my 300k, my 200k, whatever it amounts to. They want it back. And they fight to the bitter end for it. And if they can't get it back, they'll come after your assets. And if you have no assets, they'll come after your pension. They'll come after your inheritance. So it's really important in this day and age to have prenups. Okay, if you have assets, if you're expecting a large inheritance, then please protect yourselves and do a prenup so that this does not happen to you. They will do it in the name of you owing them all these expenses back. So when they take your property, when they take half your business, when they take half your inheritance, they say, well, it's owed to me. This is the amount of money I spent on you, I want it back. They justify it. That's why they don't feel guilty for taking or stealing your money in a civil divorce. I read a post the other day on Instagram that I'd like to read to you, just for you to understand the level of pettiness here. She said, I broke up with my ex on a Sunday, and on Monday morning he handed me a printed invoice. I need you to understand this was real. A physical document in a folder with a paperclip. It was titled Relationship Expenses. He had itemized 2 years of the relationship, every dinner he paid for, every movie ticket, a £4.50 iced coffee from 14 months earlier, dated with the location. The total at the bottom said £3,286. Under it in bold it said, suggested repayment. £150 a month, 22 months, no interest. I laughed at no interest, like he was doing me a favour. I asked him if he was serious. He said he'd been tracking it since month 2 because his brother told him to protect himself. Month 2, he said. He sat across from me at birthday dinners and anniversary dinners, smiling, and then went home and entered the receipts into a spreadsheet. I flipped through the pages. He had charged me for my own birthday gift. It was on there. Birthday necklace, £89. He wanted reimbursement for a gift he gave me with a card that said, you deserve the world. Apparently, the world retails at £89 and is due back upon a breakup. I did not pay him. I told him to send it to collections. He said, oh, don't be like that. I said the invoice said no interest, so I assumed there was no rush, and I left with the folder because legally he handed it to me and that made it mine. It is on my fridge to this day. Every woman who enters my apartment reads it front to back like a museum exhibit. It has done more for my dating standards than therapy. So, there are lots of women who commented underneath the post telling all their similar stories. There are thousands of women who go through this, and they were laughing because they were saying, well, the same thing happened to me, but luckily for you, it was just £3,286. For us, it was 60,000, 100,000, and so on. There was a woman who said, "My ex tried to do this to me, except he asked me for £60,000 over 5 years when he lived in my house, rent-free, and I paid for everything and did everything. When I laughed at him, and so did a judge, he tried to extort me. He didn't get anywhere with it in court." So I wouldn't worry about it, but please do protect yourselves, okay? If you do have assets and income and, an inheritance that you're expecting, please do a prenup, okay? It's really important for you to protect yourselves. You can expect anything from narcissists and psychopaths, and I also advise the same to men, because lots of women will do the same as well. Even if she said that she contributed, out of the goodness of her own heart, maybe she went 50-50 with you, whatever it is that you guys agreed on before, she will claim all of that back if you guys get a divorce, especially if you're the one to leave. So if you do have assets, businesses, properties that you attained before marriage, I do advise that you get a prenup, just in case someone crazy out there decides to do a number on you, okay? Better safe than sorry. The next question is, my sister is talking to a malignant man, but she won't leave him. What can I do to help her? For context, he swears at her and her family, threats of violence made towards her, such as, "When I slap you, you'll know how serious I am," or "Our first visit after marriage is going to be to the cemetery, so you know where you'll end up if you bother me." She tends to accept this treatment and says context matters and that we don't understand, and that I'm also a hard person to love and people can change. So, unfortunately, your sister has very low self-worth and low self-esteem, and she needs therapy for this, as there are clearly some very deep-rooted issues there, and this is causing her to accept this poor treatment and to even accept a psychopath. Because right now he's testing all her boundaries to see how badly he can treat her. So the more she enables, the more she accepts, the worse it's going to get. And she's going to put herself in a very dangerous situation. These are the types of men who get very jealous, very obsessive, very possessive, okay, and they can commit homicide. If he's starting out like this, then imagine what he's going to be like in 10 years' time. Just last week, there was a woman in Albania who escaped a very abusive man, and she took her 2 small children, and she kept telling her parents and his parents about all the abuse he put them through, and they kept telling her that a good woman doesn't leave her home. A good woman keeps her marriage together. So she finally decided to stand up for herself, because she always went back and the abuse always got worse. So she made the decision to leave him. And when he found out where she was staying, he set the house on fire and killed her and her 2 children. So your sister needs to understand how dangerous someone like this could potentially be. When they interviewed this man, he said, "She should never have left me. She made me do it. This is all her fault." There was no remorse, because he believed she deserved it. So, she needs therapy. She needs help ASAP. Please ask her to contact me. I can have one-to-one sessions with her, inshallah, and I can work through it with her. But yeah, these women need to understand the consequences of entertaining, marrying, and staying with these men. Okay? The next one is a DM I received from a sister. She said, "This is not a question, but I'm letting you know that my ex was a social worker and abused patients. He even gave information about very vulnerable women to traffickers." So she sent me this because she wanted me to create some awareness of malignant psychopaths and narcissists, working undercover in these kinds of positions. It's very important for people to know that people dealing with the vulnerable can be malignant, because they know very well that most people will trust them. And positions like these give them easy access to vulnerable people, especially women and children. Okay, so for example, you'll find lots of narcissists and psychopaths in the police force, and they train to be raqis, they train to be lawyers, sheikhs, nurses, physical therapists like chiropractors, and clinical psychologists. Okay, Clinical psychologists who are psychopaths and narcissists can manipulate you in person and target you. They know exactly how to manipulate you. So many clinical psychologists have affairs with their patients, and many of them will get raped, and if not raped, then sexually harassed. Okay, I don't advise women to go to clinical psychologists who are men in person. Never do that. You are putting yourself at risk because many of them are psychopaths. Many of them are narcissists. They know how to manipulate their victims. Okay, they know how to spot a vulnerable woman. She lives alone. She's heartbroken. She's got self-esteem issues. Perfect victim. You're giving him access to all your insecurities. You're giving him access to all your secrets. So his qareen will start working and he'll be like, okay, I'm going to target that person. This is someone I'm going to manipulate. And it often starts with an emotional connection that they build themselves so that you develop feelings for them until you become obsessed with them, you're very attached to them, and you fall in love with them. When they get you to that point, because they show you excessive care, especially when you're telling them that you have no one in your life who cares about you, that's when they get you hooked. And then an affair starts, and then they, commit crimes like rape and all sorts of things. And then they manipulate you and brainwash you into never telling anyone about it. And know that nurses can do this, lawyers can do this, and ruqya practitioners are known for doing this. Okay, I've done a whole podcast about this. You've got to be very careful when you go for ruqya. And I'm not saying all raqis are like this. I'm talking about the narcissistic and psychopathic ones. And always be very vigilant, okay? Be alert, be aware. Not everyone is, a wonderful Samaritan. Not everyone is an empath because they are a nurse or, a physical therapist or a police officer. Don't assume that all these people are good people. Always be aware and protect yourself in every situation. Don't be naive and too trusting. Okay, if you're having a social worker come to the house to speak to you about something, try and get your neighbour to come and sit in with you. Get a friend over. Don't sit there by yourself if this is the first time you're meeting somebody, especially if they are from the opposite gender. And always read your adhkars, okay? Read them in the morning, read them at night before you go to bed, and inshallah Allah will protect you from every harm. So the next and final question, we finally arrived, is more of a light-hearted one. And the sister is asking, why is it that all narcissists have bad breath? Every time I am in the presence of one, I can literally smell them a mile away, and the smell lingers in the air when they breathe out. It could be bad oral hygiene, but it even happens with the ones who take good care of themselves. Is it something deeper, more spiritual? I would love your thoughts. So, bad breath is a sign of someone having a spiritual problem. Okay, even if someone is OCD with their oral hygiene, they will have bad breath. It leaks out if they have jinn issues. And narcissists and psychopaths in general are not hygienic people, so they may groom themselves very well on the outside, but as soon as they're back home, all that disappears. Okay, there are exceptions to the rule. There are psychopaths and narcissists who are overly clean, but the majority will live in a tip. Their houses are like skips. Very disgusting, very dirty. They don't shower for days. They don't brush their teeth for days. They won't wash, even after using the toilet. I have so many clients who complain that their husbands or their wives look really good in public, very polished, very pretty, very handsome, but as soon as they come back home, it's a different story. The men will go to bed smelling of sweat. The women will go to bed smelling of food and onions, and, they won't wash their hair and they won't shave and all sorts of things. So when they are in their comfort zones, their safe spaces, they will let themselves go to be who they really are, and that is unhygienic. Okay? Intimacy is unbearable for many people with narcissists and psychopaths because they do not wash and they do not brush their teeth, so they end up smelling bad. If you catch a narcissist or a psychopath on a random day in their homes, you'll be shocked at how they live. Honestly, you will be really surprised at how they can appear so refined and so polished outside, but live in an absolute tip. Okay? If you notice someone before marriage living in that kind of environment, run for the hills. Because not only will you be their maid, this is what you're going to deal with. You're going to be dealing with very bad hygiene. So yes, this is very common. And if you notice it in public with bad breath, then just know that these people, all of them, have spiritual problems, and this is just a symptom of them. So I'll wrap it up there. I hope you've enjoyed the Q&A. I did my best to answer as many of the questions as possible. And thank you so much for everyone who did submit the questions. I really pray that these questions and answers have helped a lot of people. Thank you so much for listening if you're still with me. And please don't forget to like and share the podcast with other people who may benefit from this content. I pray that everyone who's going through this and is suffering finds ease and relief. May Allah rescue you. May Allah compensate you. And may Allah make it a reason for you to enter Jannah, inshallah. So I'll leave it there. And until the next podcast, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.